Welcome to the 411 on 420. I'm Daryl Bowman, your business and IT professional in cannabis.
Hey, and I'm Amy Ansel, your cannabis partner strategist.
Hey, thanks for joining us today and every Saturday from noon to 1 when we talk about the business of cannabis and hopefully giving you the information and news you can use to make informed decisions about a very growing and budding industry.
Right, how to navigate the new laws and what's going on in your communities, that maybe even on the end of your block.
Well, you know, it's a growing community. I keep saying these punny little things, you know. I mean,
Ba-dum-bum.
we're talking about bang, you know. I mean, we're talking about we're growing, we're budding, this industry is actually sprouting up all over the place.
But it is true.
They just keep coming, these things, I'm telling you. But the point is that they're happening all over the United States. We're legal in the state of Washington, Oregon,
Colorado,
Alaska, Colorado, Washington, D.C., more
New
places.
York, perhaps coming online.
Oh, those things are coming online. They're not there yet. But there's 23 plus states that are out there medicinally speaking and so forth.
Right, and then we're talking about the Native American. I mean, there's just so many,
the nuances
angles.
are everywhere
Right.
and so forth. So as we know, this industry is going to permeate the entire United States before long. It's just a matter of time. And so we're up there trying to let people understand what's going on. And we want to make sure that people have an informed way to address the issues that are before them. But before we ever do that, we like to talk about, if you're out there and you're hiring and so forth, whether it's in the cannabis industry or whether it's in your own industry, whatever that industry may be, hire your nation's veterans because they have sacrificed and wrote a blank check for their lives to give you the freedom to do, well, this business or any other business that you want to do.
That's right. They are your ideal candidate for employment.
You can't get a better candidate that's more
You can't.
accountable, that gives you the independence to run your business the way you need to, with the integrity, the ability to be fair and truthful, and just give you the trust that you need to grow your business and somebody that you can put your faith in.
That's right. When I'm looking at employment, any type of business, I want to be working with people that have integrity, that have honor and humility. All these qualities that come from the armed forces.
It's fantastic.
It's a beautiful thing. And so one thing that I would like to speak to directly to the veterans and say, if you're looking to get polished above and beyond this radio show, there is a workshop in Lakewood, Tacoma that can give you...
Tacoma and Lakewood are two different cities, just saying.
Well, okay, I'm in from West Seattle, so give me a little geographic education.
So here's the thing. In Lakewood, there is a place called Starbucks right on the corner of I-5
Little tiny
and
cafe.
512, and they do a little bit of work with veterans, and that's what they do. They do workshops, and they help you with a resume. They help you with the different things and so forth. It's a regular routine thing. So stop in the Starbucks over there and
valuable resource.
And you and your family and get to know what's going on there, and they can help you out. There's also Operation Good Jobs. There's a workforce development, and there's also your local chamber of commerce. All of those folks are helping veterans get jobs because that's what they're doing, and they think it's the right thing to do. Also, you go to the Department of Veterans Affairs for the state of Washington and search on whatever business you want to do to search for, and you can help, whether it's get your car washed or car worked on, get your house built, or do your lawn, whatever it is that you need to have done. There is a veteran-owned business there that can help you.
Personally speaking, and this is personally speaking, every veteran that I've worked with I have learned from, and it has been such a wonderful experience. And I'm including you in that, Daryl.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So thank you for your service.
Thank you. Listen, we are going to be talking about the business of cannabis and from an entrepreneur's perspective today. We're going to be talking about the Initiative 502 and what it did to allow people to go into business. But then we've met with a lot of regulators. We've met with a lot of legislatures and so forth, and with the state of Washington, and we've talked about the rules, the regulations, and the expectations from the regulatory agencies and those things.
And the well-articulate Mayor of Tacoma, Marilyn Strickland. That was very enjoyable.
Well, we've been with all these folks, but what we haven't done is we haven't talked to the people who are actually going through the trenches to get the permits,
on the ground,
to get the licenses and so forth, and to grow the business, no pun intended, to make that opportunity happen and so forth. So we're going to come back after these short messages. We're going to talk to John Davis, who is a founding member and the executive director of the Coalition for Cannabis Standards and Ethics, and a few other things. We'll talk to him after these short messages. I'm Daryl Bowman, your business and IT professional in cannabis.
And I'm Amy Ansel, your cannabis partner strategist.
AIMBiz.com brings you the life of a business website. The majority of business websites can't be found by search engines, so their owners lose customers and money. An AIM business website wins new customers on Google and Facebook. Imagine your website with great content management, an integrated blog, clean designs, and clear messages. To top it off, at AIMBiz.com, you get a free website design mock-up before you ever spend a dime. For more information, go to AIMBiz.com. That's AIMBIZ.com.
Sweatman Young is proud to celebrate 25 years of construction service throughout South Puget Sound, working together with you to guarantee your satisfaction and offer you a unique 2-year warranty on all work. Let Sweatman Young build your new dream home, remodel your existing home, add an additional deck, outdoor kitchen, a man cave, or even preserve your historic home. Sweatman Young provides the best construction value in South Puget Sound. Visit SweatmanYoung.com today and schedule your free consultation with Bill Sweatman, your personal professional contractor.
Ever get a traffic ticket? Had a bill you couldn't collect? Had a contract you needed advice about, such as a new insurance plan, home, or car loan? We run into these situations routinely throughout our lives. We know we need legal advice, but feel we just can't afford hiring an expensive attorney to help. Legal Shield and your legal team is now your affordable option, allowing each of us to rest assured we can quickly get the help we need for one low monthly fee. Whether it's business or personal legal advice, visit yourlegalteam.info today.
Welcome to the 411 on 420. I'm Daryl Bowman, your business and IT professional in cannabis.
Hey, I'm Amy Ansel, your cannabis partner strategist.
Hey, thanks for joining us today and every Saturday from noon to 1 when we talk about the business of cannabis and providing you information and news you can use to make informed decisions on a growing industry.
Happy Saturday, people.
Hey, very much so. Hey, we are here today with John Davis. He is welcome, John. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
John is a founding member and the executive director for the Coalition of Cannabis Standards and Ethics, which is an organization that was created to address issues that weren't before the state or anything like that. So they actually created that. He's also the vice chair of the National Cannabis Industry Association. He has worked on cannabis law reform for over 20 years, so he's been around just a tad. He's the vice president and board member of the Seattle Hemp Fest. He's also the CEO of Northwest Patient Resource Center, 2 locations in Seattle. He's got a couple of licenses in Illinois and the city of Chicago, and he's also a board member in Bloomfield in New York. My God,
you're busy.
You are busy, dude. I mean, that's a mouthful. Welcome, John. That's a lot of stuff. How do you keep sane?
Oh, I don't. Yeah, I just go the other route.
Okay.
I'm a glutton for punishment.
Oh,
but,
I guess.
You know, this is a period in history, and you know, I worked on this in the early days before. I mean, when you would see an article about cannabis and reform, and you'd be like, wow. I mean, but now is when it's really happening.
So how did you get involved in the cannabis industry? I mean, were you just out there growing your own or whatever?
No. I got into policy reform a long time ago. I was doing initiative projects back in '93. And realized no more education needed to happen. So I got involved in HempFest, and I started using that as an educational vehicle. And it also taught me a lot about the politics of permitting the world's largest cannabis rally. It's actually been really fascinating.
Well, permitting and licensing is what we're going to be talking about more here. So, and that got you started, and you just kind of snowballed?
Yeah, I had my straight world career, and I did very well at it.
What was that? A straight world?
A straight world career. Yeah, it was project.
That's the first time I've ever heard that. Well, I got a straight world career.
Well, I could have.
As opposed to a crooked one. I'm just checking.
Yeah, no, but it's something that it could have carried me the rest of my life. I mean, I didn't need.
What did you do?
I was a project manager. I built massive projects on $1 million plus. I did governmental projects.
So all these are just projects. I see how you work, and now I get it, man. I see where the guy's coming from. It's just another industry, another project, and all these different things. You just compartmentalize those.
Well, no, I mean, I worked in construction, and I was at a high level in construction, but I could not talk about what I did on policy because there was such a stigma, and so at one point. I realized when Obama was elected that things were going to change massively, and that Obama was not going to be pro-cannabis, but he was going to let the states do what they will. So
Well, he's a progressive individual, so
He's
he
a progressive
totally,
individual.
and definitely. But how does cannabis differ from all the other industries? Because you were in construction, and this cannabis industry is it's a big difference.
It's massively harder than any other business that I've ever owned, and I had businesses in construction, which are highly regulated. It's odd. Sometimes it doesn't make sense, and you really
it's
have
interesting
to.
you say that, because a lot of people go, it's odd, and you go, oh, and then the first thing I think about is the people, and then you go, no, but it's the industry that's odd.
It's the industry.
and it's the nuances and the permitting processes and the regulations and so forth, and the way we came about to getting there. That's what you're addressing, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, so you got 60 years of basically a smear campaign against it, and also you have the little tidbit that it is federally illegal, right? And people kind
Go
of laugh
figure.
that, yeah, but people kind of laugh that off, and they say, well, yeah, of course it's federally illegal, but nobody cares, right? But that permeates every aspect of the business. Whether
I'm
you're
sorry, but people do care. That the bankers really care about.
Yeah,
that.
the
That's
bank- exactly.
It's a big thing. We've talked about that a little bit on here. Banking and security is a part of that, because
They're all holding back.
well, they are. The federally illegal part says, "Oh, geez, no, I can't really get into that because."
Yeah.
right,
It's a
but-
constipated part of this industry for the state today that has been open for creation.
Now, that's a
for
word I wouldn't have
a
picked.
year and a half. Well, the reason why I say constipated is because everyone we're talking to is like, oh, I need,
I know they want.
I need relief.
That's right. Let's
yeah.
pass this baby.
I would have said clogged, but never mind. They're the same.
Clogged. There's no pain in clogged, but there's a pain in constipation.
Okay,
Right.
well, moving on.
Moving on.
Well, and the thing about it is like I've seen some massive investment trying to get into the industry, and like the investors all have their guy. They call him their guy, and usually that guy is a lawyer, usually a risk management attorney, right? And so they take these business plans from the industry and they say, "Hey, I'm going to give it to my guy," and the guy reviews it, and he comes back and he says, "Do you realize that not only could you lose the entirety of your investment, but you could lose everything else you own and go to federal prison?"
Whoa.
Right? That's not an interesting value proposition for most people that have already made their money.
And most people that are in the industry are risk takers to begin with.
Oh, yeah.
So they are. They didn't just happen upon this industry. They understand that there is an opportunity to take a leading role, and actually in some cases bleeding role, in an industry that's as nascent and developing. Not only in Washington State and Colorado were the first ones in the nation to do that, but we've already been followed by several other states and more to come.
Yeah.
And then we've recently talked about the fact that there's 23 plus states that are out there, medicinally speaking, that are legal, if you will, and then the tribal nations across the nation now, and that's 563 tribes throughout the entire United States that are now have the ability to grow and sell recreationally and medicinally on their tribal lands, which means that in effect every single state in the entire United States has now had the opportunity to have legally possessed marijuana.
Yeah.
Or cannabis.
Right.
Does that make sense?
And it's not a growing industry. It's an industry that's been here for a long time. I mean, it's not like
behind the covers kind
You're
of.
like,
Yeah,
it's a
behind the
stifled
covers.
industry.
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
when we started out in America with this prohibition thing, I mean, cannabis was available at every corner pharmacy with no age limitations. Now with prohibition, we're a little less than 5% of the world's population, and we consume 25% of the world's cannabis. Right? It is a huge business in the United States, and the thing about it
it's a
is,
hugely untaxed business in the
yeah,
United States.
exactly. Right?
And that's a big thing.
It's a huge thing, and what we're doing is moving it over, and there's lots of things at play, including the people that have been doing it for a long time don't necessarily want to live under any sort of regulation.
Oh yeah, there's that one, you take away taxes and that can be up to 20-30% of your income is all of a sudden going away, and then regulation issues for those individuals that don't want to have any kind of regulatory issues. I mean, they got to worry about what they put in the product and so forth, and the traceability back to it, and then oh my God, you're in the system, because that's another word that happens. I've heard quite a bit. But the reality is, if you want to have a system and an industry that is going to flourish, I keep using these words. Then we need to
organic.
we need regulatory issues. Because we want to protect what goes into a body.
Right.
From a food standpoint, for instance, if we ingest or we inhale, we have regulations that put that into us, and we don't have those from a black market, is what we're talking about, standpoint, which is what, as traditionally over the course of the last 50, 80 years or whatever, that's where we've been.
Yeah.
As in a black market situation, and we're ostensibly trying to say, you know what, enough is enough. As the citizens are voting to say, forget it. Put it out on the front burner, and let's tax it, let's regulate it, and let's accept it, and let's go ahead and move forward, because we're tired of this behind the covers thing.
Yeah, and I've talked to many community groups. Like, I just went through the process in Chicago, and it's like, you have people that show up at these meetings, and they're like, well, I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with you bringing cannabis to Chicago. And I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding?
It's already there, right?
Yeah, let me go out to the street corner. I'll come right back, But, it already exists. I mean, we are just talking about regulating. The thing about it is, children in Prohibition have easier access to illegal drugs than legal drugs. So as far as I'm concerned, we're for regulation. The people that are for, legalization are for regulation of something that's already here. And if you're for Prohibition, you're for kids smoking pot. Well, that's my view.
That is one view. I mean, we've heard it both ways, and that it does make a lot of sense. It has validity, and it has a good viewpoint, and so forth. And you're not talking from an uneducated viewpoint either. I mean, you've been around the industry for a while, and you've seen both sides of that coin.
And we're talking about regulation. Could you dissect law versus policy?
Well, yeah, exactly. Law it's federally legal. Cannabis is, but there's law, and the law is a study of what's written into law books. Policy is a study not only of the law, but how those are enacted, how they're enforced, especially, and how they're interpreted.
Okay.
Like, because you can have laws on the books, like Seattle has this 25 feet from a door or window for cigarettes, but you walk down the street, nobody listens to that, and it's completely unenforced. But with policy, and so cannabis is federally illegal, and people say, well, yeah, but it's not enforced federally. Well, it kind of is. It sometimes is.
Well, there's a lot of people in prison.
It's selectively enforced.
Right.
What you're
And
saying.
so the real question is why? And most people say, yeah, like I know that it's federally illegal, but I don't think that I'm taking any risk. Well, you've got to understand why that is in place, and how it's constructed, especially if you're gonna be in the industry.
Let's talk about the industry itself, and so this is not a small industry. What do you think the magnitude of this industry is? What is the overall magnitude of state by state or United States and so forth? What do you think that magnitude is? It's not just it's not a couple of million. It's a few big. There's a few B's behind it.
Oh, as far as the size, I mean, the real answer is nobody knows because of the black market. However, there have been numerous studies. One was done by Jeffrey Miron from Harvard, and he put it several years ago at, like, I think it was $58 billion domestically.
We're already talking close to $1 billion just in the state of Washington, and we've only been involved in it 15 months, and we're not even there yet.
Oh yeah, and we're not even touching the black market yet.
Exactly.
So that number, the more that the numbers come in, the more that we get feedback, the bigger we realize that it is 58 billion is way too low.
We're sitting there talking about from our conversation with Rick Garza at the state of Washington's Liquor and Cannabis Board was telling us that we're close to $1 billion on tax revenues and so forth, just tax revenues, by the way, and that is a monstrous number. I mean,
especially in cash, right?
And
where do you put all that?
And we're sitting here going, okay, I mean revenues on cash. I mean, not that they didn't pay $1 billion in taxes. There was taxes paid on $1 billion, almost $1 billion, and not even all the stores that were retail have been actually opened, because a lot of them are banned in many different jurisdictions, which we've talked about in other shows as well, as why they enforce those bans and how we get those lifted, and why they lift them and when they're going to lift them and things like that. So with that said, we're talking just a fraction of the business has actually been permitted, if you will, and actually
Onboarded.
active and
Yep.
so forth. And we're still close, and we're popping close to 1 billion right now in one state. And Colorado's been going. They're a lot farther along than we are, and they're several billion down the road.
Yeah.
And I can see projections that that 58 billion is probably going to be more closer to 100 to 150 from an estimated standpoint. And this is just an educated guess, by the way, on my part. But once you eliminate the black market and you fully regulate and implement across 50 states, that might be closer to a reality. What thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I agree with you. As we get the numbers in, each time it's like where you didn't think that it could possibly be that large. I would say it would be more like 200 billion. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the actual numbers are one day in my life. I hope.
Well, I think that we're going to get there. I mean, this is a nascent industry, and again, with the tribal nations being able to operate in 50 states already, should they choose, then again, we have to follow up from the public standpoint, the states and so on and so forth, and then we've got issues that we've got to deal with regards to transportation across state lines.
Yeah.
That's another issue. So, are you going to be involved in things like that, I hope?
Well, I kind of already am. I mean,
There you go.
It's a experimentation and policy. In working on policy, sometimes theories have to be tested, right? And so we're testing what can happen over state lines because there are policies. Like if you have a company and that company is Direct Touch and you are moving money over a border, you're going to have issues.
Right.
However,
Yikes.
there are things that you can do and can't do. And most people are, just doing ancillary businesses, which is good. But there are things actually that you can do in cannabis over state lines that are consistent with policy. But
Like
you
lighting companies, things that aren't, you're not,
Those are peripheral organizations that
Right.
support the organization. We're
Right.
not talking about the cash or the
or
plant.
the plant.
Well,
Right.
or intellectual property. I mean, you can have a brand of cannabis so long as your company isn't, you're just making the bags. You're not,
manufacturing here and manufacturing over there.
right, exactly. And those type of activities can happen over state lines.
What's interesting is you talk about that from a banking perspective. The only banks that are actually accepting monies from cannabis organizations are ones that are fully enclosed within the state, meaning small branches, small banks, credit unions, and so forth that don't have a footprint in multiple state lines and so forth. Those are the only ones that are actually accepting cash from those individuals, meaning that 85% of the money right now is going into those, but there's 15 to 20%, if I remember correctly from our conversation with Rick, is that money's being paid in cash. And that's a lot of cash out there from a safety standpoint, from a community safety standpoint.
Yeah.
That from a criminal activity standpoint is,
There's
an
some
issue.
wide open.
It's a concern
Yeah.
for people in communities to go, hey, you know what? Electronic transmission of cash is a whole lot nicer and safer than the other.
Yeah, and Amy's been to my facility. It's built like a bank on steroids for exactly that reason. And I've managed to maintain banking for all these years, but it hasn't been easy. But my store is made like a bank in the anticipation that I could become a bank, and it is risk.
And
But,
your store is also very much like a doctor's office.
yeah,
Oh, you're
Yeah.
talking about the Northwest Patient Resource Center.
Northwest Patient Resource Center, yeah.
Okay, and so now that's why don't we come back after these short messages and we'll talk more about the Northwest Patient Resource Center and then dispensaries and so forth and where that's going from here.
Sure.
I'm Daryl Bowman, your business and IT professional in cannabis.
And I'm Amy Ansel, your cannabis partner strategist.
We'll be right back. And now, the Motivation Minute brought to you by Kevin Hunter from the Business Forum Show.
For leadership today, the subject of motivation is troublesome, but yet it's because motivation is commonly misunderstood. Let me give you an example. The well-worn phrase, "we need to get out there and motivate the troops," comes from a misunderstanding in which we believe that we actually motivate other people. And yet, real motivation only comes from within. So let me give you a different word, inspire. As leaders, if we inspire our people, we create an environment and set an example that people want to follow. You'll find out that your people are very motivated to go in any direction you want them to. Here's another interesting thing. When we say people in our organization are not motivated, it's easy to blame the employee. But if we said they were not inspired, that responsibility comes back to us as leaders. So ditch the blame game of saying your people aren't motivated, and instead create an environment and foster attitudes that inspire people and see what happens. I'm Kevin Hunter from the Business Forum Show. Thanks for listening.
AIMBiz.com brings you the life of a business website. The majority of business websites can't be found by search engines, so their owners lose customers and money. An AIM business website wins new customers on Google and Facebook. Imagine your website with great content management, an integrated blog, clean designs, and clear messages. To top it off, at AIMBiz.com, you get a free website design mock-up before you ever spend a dime. For more information, go to AIMBiz.com. That's AIMBIZ.com.
Swetman Young is proud to celebrate 25 years of construction service throughout South Puget Sound, working together with you to guarantee your satisfaction and offer you a unique 2-year warranty on all work. Let Swetman Young build your new dream home, remodel your existing home, add an additional deck, outdoor kitchen, a man cave, or even preserve your historic home. Swetman Young provides the best construction value in South Puget Sound. Visit SwetmanYoung.com today and schedule your free consultation with Bill Swetman, your personal professional contractor.
Ever get a traffic ticket? Had a bill you couldn't collect? Had a contract you needed advice about, such as a new insurance plan, home, or car loan? We run into these situations routinely throughout our lives. We know we need legal advice, but feel we just can't afford hiring an expensive attorney to help. Legal Shield and your legal team is now your affordable option, allowing each of us to rest assured we can quickly get the help we need for one low monthly fee. Whether it's business or personal legal advice, visit yourlegalteam.info today.
Welcome to the 411 on 420. I'm Daryl Bowman, your business and IT professional in cannabis.
And I'm Amy Ansel, your cannabis partner strategist.
Hey, thanks for joining us today and every Saturday from noon to 1 when we talk about the business of cannabis, providing you information and news you can use to make informed decisions about a growing industry.
That's right. When we're here, we're listening to John Davis help us navigate what we're doing here in the industry.
John is an industry stalwart in the cannabis industry and helped create many of the different laws and so forth. And as we left at the break just a few seconds ago, we were talking about the Northwest Patient Resource Center that you are a founder of. Got a couple of
dispensary,
if you will. And the fact that now the state of Washington is integrating dispensaries into our actually medical marijuana into the licensing for 502, and they're doing a different. They already licensed recreational in a way that they did it kind of a lottery situation, and now there's a methodology that they've come together. And so, can you talk about it from a business perspective? Two things, two questions here, really quick. One is getting that initial 502 recreational, the process and so forth, and the investment, and then getting the transition from, let's say, a dispensary and maybe getting in a medical license in that under 502 now. So that what's that process and what's that cost?
Well, if you're hearing about it now, you might be hearing about it a little late.
That's if you want to invest. I'm just talking about your experiences.
Yeah. Well, my experience. I mean, so the law that was passed, 5052, gave a merit-based path to basically licensing. The deal that was struck in the legislature.
Now, licensing what?
Licensing the unregulated or the unlicensed medical.
Okay, good. I want to make sure that we're on the right path, because people don't know what 5052 means to them.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So what the deal that was struck in the legislature was, okay, we're going to end the unlicenses, but we're going to give these people licenses. So we're
going to move you out of the unregulated area into the regulated area that we can control and monitor.
Yeah, and then we're going to create a medical program that you can get a medical endorsement. And, it's one of those things that's still moving forward. I mean, the process is very bureaucratic and cumbersome.
Well, yeah, we're dealing with government. It doesn't happen overnight.
Exactly. Exactly.
Nothing happens overnight and has to start somewhere.
Right. Yeah, and so right now, I mean, you have to go through and basically prove your merit in a priority system that is largely, actually, in my experience and talking to a lot of people, being gamed. A lot of the people that have their priority one status have no history. They certainly don't have a dispensary.
Well, I have seen, it doesn't matter what system is. People will game a system. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter what the system is. You could have what you think is the most rock solid, thing, and somebody will figure it out a way.
Yeah.
Because that's just, we're ingenuitive people out there on this planet.
Right.
Especially when there is an opportunity like this before people.
Right.
They will go, what can I do to get be a part of that? So, but tell us what that system means, because I think there's a priority 1, priority 2, priority
Yeah.
3. So explain what that means to people.
So in that it's priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, and this is in the law. If you want to look at it, 69.51.331. And
Boy, you're a walking encyclopedia. Thank you very much.
Dewey Decimal.
well, I mean, you can look at it. The priority system says that the license will be given to those who maintained taxes, business license, and operated or were employed by, it says in the law, a collective garden before 2013. And priority 1 has the addition of saying that you applied in the last round.
So that means that if you were employed by, is that little part where you can actually
Yeah.
say, I was employed by
Right.
someone over there, so now I can actually use that to help me if I'm in a newer organization now to help me get into that system.
Right. And if you want to form a company and say, okay, well, here, this guy applied, and now he owns 1%, and this guy scrubbed toilets in a dispensary in 2012, and here's a pay receipt for it. He owns 1% of my company. I'm a priority 1. And you don't have to have a store. You don't have to have, I mean, you would think one of the things
Wow.
of merit was go outside and take a picture of your store and send it to it, but that's not part of the submission
Well, yeah,
process.
I mean, so best laid plans, obviously, right? We tried, and it's a fast moving target, by the way.
It is, and everyone has to get their stuff together, and it's supposed to be done before July 1st.
And I'm thinking a fast moving target, by the way, from the government side, that
Yeah.
they're trying to do a lot of things in a very short period of time to appease a lot of people in the most as possible. So I'm not trying to, I'm saying devil's advocate here
Right.
to see what they're trying to do the best thing they can. There's a tier 2 though. What's that mean?
Well, well, what it means
Priority
is
2, excuse me.
you operated or were employed by a collective garden before 2013. You have a history of paying taxes and a history of maintaining all applicable business licenses. The only difference between priority 1 and priority 2 is that you applied in the first round. And there
Okay,
are
well,
yeah.
there you go.
Right, and there are dispensaries out there that they didn't apply last time because they were worried about themselves being losing their ability to treat the needs of their specialty patients. So they
So it
didn't.
wasn't big happy family of like everybody's for this industry and we're all getting along here. There's different
So the people-
communities, right?
Yeah.
With belief systems of how they relate to the plant and how they see it being carried out to the public.
Also,
yeah.
also with their thought processes on the I-502, whether they believe that it was a good law or not, and they just wanted to participate or not.
Right.
Well, I mean, there is no such thing as a good law, right? It's all legislative sausage, and
I love it.
I
That's
went through the
hilarious.
process, and I was very engaged in 5052.
I'm going to
and
use
I
that
ca-
someday.
You can.
That's good. That's great.
But it started off horrible, and we got it better and better and better, and not so bad.
It's interesting though. We got it, and then when it was implemented and when it was started and passed, it was one thing. It's changed and evolved quite a bit now, hasn't it? I mean, the rules, regulations, and everything have under 502 have evolved in a big way. Taxation was the biggest thing out there, 25, 25, 25, which is on the different industry from grow to process to from a produce to process to retail, and then a 10% on top of that for sales tax.
Right.
That's a freaking
And
lot
then
of
you're
taxes.
federally taxed on all of that like it was profit.
Exactly, and no chance to use any tax deductibility issues or anything like that.
Oh,
So
no.
when you look at all of that, that was a monster thing. Now they've changed that, so I think there was 37.5% now on at
Yeah.
the end result. So that's a big reduction, like cut in half, actually, right?
Well, yeah, and it's also put on the end, so it never hits your book, so the federal government doesn't treat it like profit. So,
Okay.
But it's like anything. Like I've been doing this for 20 years.
But it's illegal. You can't pay taxes on illegal profits. I'm just kidding. That was
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out there.
That's
by the way.
excellent advice from your lawyer. Yeah, go ahead and don't pay taxes because policy says they don't care about taxes.
Yeah, they're not really there, But they'll arrest you for being that. But yet, I'm just kidding. This is a joke,
Right.
by the way. I was trying to be funny. Go ahead.
No, well, I mean, there's all sorts of problems with it, but from looking at it, from being involved in it for 20 years, I mean, it's always been the same. Like, we have got small victories, and we have built on them. But look where we have come. Remember what it was like 20 years ago? It was treated roughly the same as plutonium, right?
Well, there's a lot of people that are serving sentences in prison for...
They're still in there.
For just smoking a joint or whatever. And that's really not... and they're like 3-time losers or
Is there any
like
talk
that.
about that? Like, exonerating these peaceful
Well, you can't...
offenders?
It's hard to do legislatively, and most people that are in for those long sentences are in for federal sentences. And Obama has been showing that his policy is to move away from mass incarceration. But there's still lots of work. 502, a lot of people use the term legalization. And it's like, ish, right?
Ish. Yeah.
It's more legalish now. But I mean, there's still so much we got to do. I one of the things I do is I help produce HempFest, Seattle HempFest. I do the permitting for it, and I was in this big room in the city of Seattle, and one of the agents that were there, they were like, "Well, it's legal now, so you guys are just a party, right? It has nothing to do with protected free speech." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Like, you could still have even in Washington State, you could have your children taken away. Like, there's a Coates v. Dish Network in Colorado, where a quadriplegic in a legal state with a prescription for cannabis, he took a test for his employer, Dish Network, and they fired him for cannabis use." And
Oh
he's
my
like,
gosh.
"Hey, not only is it legal in Colorado, but like I'm a quadriplegic,
Oh my.
and I'm on the phones. There is no. I'm not using
not driving,
heavy.
dude.
Yeah, I'm
I'm
not
not
driving. Right? And
Only this conversation. It's
But-
probably a creative one, too.
it's still got so much to go. So I mean, we're going to have to continue to fight on all these things legislatively, and the tax is still too high. We're going to have to get it down. But I mean,
One of the reasons is why they say the tax is too high and get it down is until it's actually more affordable from a regulatory perspective and in those government sanctioned localities and so forth, it's still a viable black market industry.
oh yeah. Even in Seattle, they're saying we think maybe we got 9%. And I'm like, okay, so you think maybe you got 91% that is
Not.
black market, right? And they're advertising. Like, look at the back of the weeklies, the delivery services, which is completely illegal, are advertising, and no one seems to care about them. So we
That's
still
an
have
interesting concept. Didn't even know that happened. So what's a gray market? I've heard that bantered around a bit.
Oh yeah, people in the black market like to use the term gray.
Oh,
Well, I mean,
we're
it's
on the edge.
right,
We're trying
it's-
to go white.
And I would say, yeah. So I'm gray market right now, right? Because I'm medical going into this system, but is what I'm doing illegal technically? Sure. Right, but we have a policy of how we're going to move forward.
But you're paying taxes, and you're doing all. You
Have
got
since
your
day
permit.
one.
You got your permits from the city, and you got your all
Yep.
that stuff. So you've been doing all the things from a local jurisdictionally speaking correct thing, but still because your local jurisdiction said it was okay to have medical cannabis in your local jurisdiction, being Seattle or Tacoma or wherever that happens to be. Then the state said it was also from the law, and so you practice, and a lot of people are doing that, and that's the gray market, which are in the dispensary area, which we're trying to say at this point in time fold into the 502. And what happens then? All those people go bye-bye?
Well, I mean, yeah, you go into the new licensing, or you go non-commercial, do it for yourself, do it with a small group non-commercially. I mean, that's all fine. But if you're going
what
to...
is that? I mean, are we still going to be able to do that? Are people still going to be
Yeah.
able to grow for their own selves and so forth? Or-
They're cooperative gardens now.
Okay.
And
How many do you get?
You get 60 plants between 4 people, but you can't trade outside that,
it's-
four-person network. And you can't do anything commercially.
That's a freaking forest for 4 people.
That is a... yeah.
It's a forest. 60, that's 60.
60.
Yeah,
for-
that's a forest for 4 people.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I think that you could probably, with 4 people, you
Yeah,
could
that's
probably keep
ample.
yourself...
Yeah,
That's
I
ample.
think you got
so.
ample supply. That's no
I
doubt about it.
saw a very old tin can in your dispensary
Yeah.
years ago when you were building it.
Yeah.
And I just loved it because how many rolled joints were once in this large like U-Bahn coffee can
Yeah.
looking thing, and it was from the federal government. Can you explain?
Yeah, it's from the University of Mississippi. It was U.S. government issued weed. They still do it to this day for 4 people. It's it's a large tin. That's
Is that University of Mississippi? Because people are going to go, where do I get the
Ole
mail
Miss.
order?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Ole Miss.
And
And they grow it. The federal government grows it for
they grow it,
federally
and then they
approved
they
patients.
put it in these. They pre-roll these cigarette-looking things, and they just jam that thing full of
And
joints.
what is that allotment for? A day, a month, a year?
A month.
It's a month, and how many joints would that have been, amortized per day?
Oh God,
Looks like quite a
it's a
few.
lot. Yeah,
It's like 10, 12, 15 joints a day.
yeah, but like Irv Rosenfeld, who's out of Florida, he's he smokes a lot. He's got serious bone tumor issues, and Elvie Masaka, who actually I got the can from Elvie, she smokes quite a bit herself because she's got some really bad glaucoma.
Wow.
Oh.
Well, I'm not saying it was a gluttonous amount or anything, because everybody.
Oh, you
it's
just did. What are you talking
freedom
about?
of pain management. Well, it was just an insane amount from the federal government who's saying,
No,
hey,
But the word
wait a minute.
insane and gluttonous are they're not synonymous in this context at all.
Well,
Oh, yeah,
it
right.
was like,
Go, Amy, go.
way, yeah, it was awesome that the federal government did that, but it's also jaw-dropping that they would give their, approved consumers, right, so much.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
what I want to do is I want to come back to this conversation in just a second. Let's take a break, come back after these short messages, and we'll talk more with John Davis about the cannabis industry, where it's going, and how it's getting there. I'm Darryl Bowman, your business and IT professional in cannabis.
And I'm Amy Ansel, your cannabis curious questioner.
AimBiz.com brings you the life of a business website. The majority of business websites can't be found by search engines, so their owners lose customers and money. An AIM business website wins new customers on Google and Facebook. Imagine your website with great content management, an integrated blog, clean designs, and clear messages. To top it off, at AimBiz.com, you get a free website design mock-up before you ever spend a dime. For more information, go to AimBiz.com. That's AIMBIZ.com.
Swetman Young is proud to celebrate 25 years of construction service throughout South Puget Sound, working together with you to guarantee your satisfaction and offer you a unique 2-year warranty on all work. Let Swetman Young build your new dream home, remodel your existing home, add an additional deck, outdoor kitchen, a man cave, or even preserve your historic home. Swetman Young provides the best construction value in South Puget Sound. Visit SwetmanYoung.com today and schedule your free consultation with Bill Swetman, your personal professional contractor.
Ever get a traffic ticket? Had a bill you couldn't collect? Had a contract you needed advice about, such as a new insurance plan, home, or car loan? We run into these situations routinely throughout our lives. We know we need legal advice, but feel we just can't afford hiring an expensive attorney to help. Legal Shield and your legal team is now your affordable option, allowing each of us to rest assured we can quickly get the help we need for one low monthly fee. Whether it's business or personal legal advice, visit yourlegalteam.info today.
Welcome back to the 411 on 420. I'm Darryl Bowman, your business and IT professional in cannabis.
And I'm Amy Ansel, your cannabis partner strategist.
A minute ago, she was curious, but now she's just a
I'm
strategist.
still curious.
Okay, well, thanks again for joining us today and every Saturday, when we talk about business of cannabis and giving you information and news you can use to, make a decision in a growing industry. So thanks again, John Davis, for joining us. We do appreciate you taking the time to come to our studio and
Have a
talk
great
about
time.
what's going on in the cannabis industry. We've been talking a lot about a lot of different topics and so forth. And one of the things that we haven't really covered is the fact that we've come into this. We just talked about cannabis, medical cannabis going into the regulated areas with under 502 and so forth. And there's a lot of viability happening, and we're going to grow this industry. But one of the things we need to talk about is investment opportunities for people. What kind of investment, as people that are being into this industry, what have they been putting in, and are they getting a return yet? I mean, people talk about the money that's coming in, but I understand that it's not as simple as that, given the fact that there is a pretty big entry to the regulatory issue.
Well, I assume you're talking about direct touch, organizations that actually deal with cannabis as opposed to organizations that may make bags for cannabis.
I'm thinking more along the people that actually deal the grow it, that process it, and retail, that have to put in all of the measures that come along with the regulatory issues.
Well, yeah. First, like if you're growing indoors, it's incredibly expensive. The growing
cameras and tracking and software and
HVAC and lights and
growing it outside. It's like,
but still
Mother Nature.
But still, there's a whole lot of regulatory issues around.
There's a whole lot of regulatory
security
issues to that,
and that's what I'm talking about, because that is a startup cost. That's regardless of where you're growing it, inside or outside, you still have to have.
Well, yeah, but outside is a hell of a lot less expensive. I mean,
you don't have lights.
You have to have an 8-foot fence. And you have to have cameras.
Okay.
Right? And
you still have
to
tracking software. You still have
you have to have the tracking software.
And you got to manage what's going into there and pay attention to everything that's gone into the plant and so on and so forth. So it's trackable.
But that's not as much of an upfront cost.
Right. This is just line items for a very valuable asset.
Right.
Well, and that grows every 3 months.
Right, and and it's very, very difficult to. I've seen a lot of things going on with investment or potential investment in the direct touch, but I mean, you're first and foremost, you come back to the banks, right? Oftentimes due diligence includes calling a bank, and when someone calls your bank and says, "Hey, look, I just want to make sure that you're cool with the weed thing," like you don't even end up with a bank account that you could transfer money in.
No, they're gone.
Right, they're gone. Right, so you have a problem with people not understanding how do I assess my risk right here, and people being able to get return, because most of the money right now is not being put into profit. It is being put back into the business. I mean, we're still under 280E on the retail side, especially.
What's that? What is 280E for people that don't know?
280E is a provision in federal tax law that says you may not take standard business deductions in the trafficking of a Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 substance. Marijuana is clearly a Schedule 1 substance, so you may not
take any tax deductible.
Like
that is a huge financial spank.
That like rent, payroll.
Yeah, you can't take it off.
And I've believe me, I've worked with the best and brightest in this industry, and you know what happens when you can't take that deduction? It shows up as profit, and you are taxed like that. So there's a lot of people. I was talking to an accountant the other day, and we're talking about this guy's problem, and he's not rich, I said to the accountant. And the accountant looks at me and says, federal government thinks he is.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And, I mean, sometimes the effective tax rate can be more than you're paying in payroll.
So how are we going to get this thing up off the ground and flying and soaring like Colorado?
Well, I mean, we got to keep fighting on it. I mean, we're fighting. This is a federal battle too, and that's why I'm National Cannabis Industry Association, because I do care about banking and taxes, and also long prison sentences, and you can't affect those on the state level. So you've got to fight those on the federal level. But this industry is taking off, sure. But it's also really hard to assess what your risks are
and where the sweet spots are, right?
Right, and what the sweet spots are. And sometimes you put money into a company, and the company just can't make it.
What about big money? I mean, corporate money, corporate cash. I mean, the big boys out there that are saying, "Hey,
like Home Depot."
No, I'm not.
Right? Like that type of big boy.
No, I'm talking about somebody that wants to grow. Home Depot's not growing.
They're an ancillary.
But that my talking. I mean, somebody like R.J. Reynolds or something like that.
Oh.
That I'm talking about that's been in a growing industry that rolls and blah blah blah. So, what do you think? What about those folks coming into the industry and dominating? Or is that a possibility or potential or what?
R.J. Reynolds also has risk management attorneys in it.
Of course.
And like they have they're not really that popular to begin with. So
yeah, they
they're,
lost a lawsuit.
They're yeah, or two. So them looking at it, and I've actually talked to someone high up in Philip Morris about this. It's like, okay, so now it's federally illegal. Now people that hate us are going to actually have teeth because we're actually doing something illegal, right? And even in different industries.
Oh, I see where you're going with that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not going to put the rest of their business at risk by getting into marijuana. I see it every day. I mean, you turn around, everyone's got $10 million. Everyone you talk to, oh yeah, I'm looking for an investment opportunity. It's like, you're never going to move that.
Oh well, yeah, that's
Right.
a question. That is the why. I've had questions of people going, "What about big money coming in and driving out all our small mom and pop shops?"
At some point, but I mean, it's not going to be anytime soon. And
Well, you're
there's-
talking. Well, give it 15, 20 years when the market starts getting mature,
Yeah.
and we have cross-border pollination, so to speak. God, I use those words all the time. But you know what I mean? When
Yeah.
we're talking about being able to manage and move and so forth, then it makes sense to start saying, hey, we have mergers happening here, and big money starts coming in and saying, I'm going to buy this and put these together, and these two people will operate. But by then, laws will have to change as well, because we have laws specifically preventing that kind of thing happening in the state of Washington.
Yeah. Well, eventually, yes, it's going to happen, but not anytime soon, because there's so much that has to change before that to happen. And then you have the investment companies, they start looking on the ancillaries, but they come back with the same thing. Like a Privateer, I found very interesting, because they were talking about doing direct touch here, and then they're like, "Ooh, boy, that seems risky." So what they did was they bought Leafly, and I'm not an attorney out there, but please, someone who's an attorney, call me and tell me why I'm wrong. The criminal conspiracy is if there's someone that has a Schedule 1 controlled substance and you facilitate a sale of a Schedule 1 controlled substance, you're just as guilty as the person that sold it, and you're responsible for all the weight, right? So it's like, even on these ancillaries, let me put it to you
So you're
this way.
thinking every attorney that gives any advice in this area is at risk? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah. Well, no, there's a court ruling out of Colorado on how you can talk about it. I mean, but the first thing, you have to give the disclaimer if you're an attorney, hey, this is all illegal behavior, this is all criminal conspiracy, yada, yada, yada. Let me
Okay.
save you $500 on that one. But, like, if you're making a bag, and that bag is for the purpose of packaging and sale of a Schedule 1 controlled substance, you are guilty of criminal conspiracy, right? So the people looking at the ancillaries as safe, they're taking the same risk.
So if they're getting their bags from China, then the whole freaking country's over there got a problem.
International conspiracy there. I mean,
my
really, and it sounds far-fetched, but it is absolutely the case.
Oh,
And-
there's a case that could be made for it. That sounds
Yeah.
like.
Well, are they connecting the dots and actually enforcing that type of
no, but
association?
that's policy. Why they're not, and
Okay.
how you can set up.
Well, help
And-
us understand where the sweet spot is. So you have an entrepreneur, maybe they don't have 10 million, but they have some cash and they want to invest
Oh, yeah.
their time and create something. And,
Oh,
and they're a
you-
white collar. They can do anything they want. What would you suggest they do getting into the 502 industry here in the state of Washington?
Okay, well, let me do some
And they're
on-air
not- and-
criminal conspiracy.
And they're not, and they are not under any of the
Well,
current
security guard? What is that sweet spot of like, hey, this is a perfect place to be positioned?
The sweet spot is you don't actually have to to touch cannabis. It doesn't really matter. Like, you can have a brand here. Let me give you you can have a brand anywhere, right? And the IP, because of policy, it's still criminal conspiracy, but because of policy, IP is super clean. So you can have brand of cannabis in every state where it's legal, and you're not direct touch, right? You're just a brand. And you could do that also real estate. You can own the real estate. There's lots of things you can do. You can
Well,
you
there
can-
are people that I know that went out and bought a lot of property and then rented nothing to, but only to people that are growing,
Well, there's a
processing,
sweet
or whatever.
spot.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
but you got to think about, you're an investor. Where's your return, right?
Right.
So you got to pair that. You got to be smart and pair that with an option, right? Okay. So we're going to rent this to you, but then when it becomes, and everyone uses the term sufficiently legal, then when it becomes sufficiently legal, we have the option to buy it from you for $1. and we own your business, right? So you can have cannabis growing everywhere, and when you figure your risk tolerance finally gets there, you can enact it and hold the whole thing, right? Even in different states. Just wait for. You'll be waiting for a minute.
You might be waiting for quite a
long,
while.
long hot
Right.
minute.
Now, the reason I asked that question about and you waiting for a minute is in the state of Washington, actually, you can only be involved in a couple of different enterprises at one time. So
Yeah.
you can, you can be involved in 3 retail stores and
Right.
so on and so forth. You can't own the complete
Package.
vertical.
Right.
You can't go to the vertical where you grow, process, and retail it because that's a complete vertical. And so they snubbed everybody at the grow and process, and then said no retail if you have license on those two, because they don't want the complete chain there. Because that way, the larger organizations that have the capacity to do all that don't come in and just do that. It keeps out the black market cartel and things like that from
I've seen
occurring.
that done,
I mean,
though.
that's what I'm understanding.
family
That's the
members.
understanding I have from the reason by the law. Can you explain that or not?
Well, yeah, but I mean, there's a. So you can only own retail. If you own retail, you can't be a producer processor. If you're a producer processor, you can't be a retailer.
Right.
So, but as I say, you form Nuco and you come up with Bob's brand, and you're going to make Bob's brand. Well, Bob's brand figures out intellectual property and goes over to a producer processor and says, here's the intellectual property, you're going to produce Bob's brand, and then to a retailer and says, okay, you're going to be Bob's dispensary, right? But we're going to give you the...
They produce it. They just don't own anything in any one of those things.
They own the intellectual property and the brand.
Right, but they don't own the license.
No, they don't own the license.
And
so
that's
right,
where
that's
where-
key.
That's the key part right there, because if they own the license, then they would be in default. I mean, it would be illegal to do that. But since they own the intellectual property and say, hey, go ahead and manufacture my brand over here, manufacture my brand over here, that's fine. You're not licensed by the state to do that. The people are licensing you. They're licensing from you your intellectual property.
Right, and
Big difference.
And you're a business show, so I assume that you want someone to talk real about this thing.
No,
you
I
know?
mean, I'm just trying to explain that so that, you don't own the license to the retail license by the state
Yeah.
or to the processor or to the thing. They own a license from you
Right.
to manufacture or produce your intellectual property,
Right.
your plastic bag or your bud or your brownie
your
or what, your
name.
brownie or
Yeah.
oil or whatever, and something on the retail side if that's the case, so they can manufacture your brand and present it in that retail spot. So you could do the entire chain, if you will, as a brand.
Kind of like
but-
white labeling, right?
well,
Yeah.
yeah, it is like white labeling, but it's not in the fact that you're giving them a recipe more than anything.
Yeah, but I mean, from an investor point of view, like, don't follow what I do. I do my stuff for a specific reason. But if you're just an investor looking for an opportunity, I mean, like direct touching. Doing what I'm doing, it actually stifles you from doing a lot of the other stuff. So, I mean, you can have a multi-state brand right now.
Right, yeah.
But it's not, it's not viewed as policy as cannabis money going over a border. It's intellectual property money going over a border. In fact, you could have an international brand, and the end result of that international brand could be that it all touches cannabis, but you just own the intellectual property. I mean, I think that's where the smart money eventually is going to get in, and that actually might not be a bad thing, because then the mom and pops can have the people that actually do the stuff, the people that actually touch the cannabis.
Right. There's experts in their respective places.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
License holders.
So do you think right now that
Innovators.
the laws that we have in place, are they too strict, or they need some refining and be loosened up, or what are we at? When too strict or
What would
too
you
loose?
want? Right.
Well, I mean,
as an entrepreneur.
it's a maddening thing. It's a direct touch. They're at the same time way too strict and almost non-existent.
When you say direct touch, I want to make sure people are talking about the fact that you're actually
I sell cannabis,
exactly.
retail.
That's what I'm talking about when they say direct touch.
Right.
Means
They'll
you-
Google that. And
No. I mean, because you can say
Might be.
direct touch means it's not a brand or anything like that. Direct touch means you either grow it, you process it, or you retail it.
Right.
You're physically
Touching the plant.
Touching the
Yeah,
plant.
you're touching the plant.
Okay, I just want to make sure people that have heard that they're not thinking that's some kind of brand.
Right.
Okay.
And the ancillaries is everything, like if you're a real estate broker selling bags or marketing agent, you know, all those accountant, lawyer, right? All those people also engaged in criminal conspiracy, but they're not directly touching the plant, called ancillaries.
Okay.
Right. And so a lot of the investors like to be on ancillaries because they somehow think that
It's safer.
It's safer, but like it's all a policy thing.
Well, speak about policy. Let's talk about lobbying and all that stuff. How does that happen in cannabis industry? I mean, because lobbying across the U.S. has got a kind of a bad name, if you will, because hey, people own the Congress and they own the Senate, if you will. But in order to get laws passed, you got to freaking lobby because that's the only way things happen and so forth. So I take it you've been involved in the local, the state, the regional, and the national scene for lobbying and so forth. Can you describe that and what that environment looks like and the future for it?
Yeah, and the United Nations from the international.
Oh,
scene,
there we
but,
go.
Oh, fantastic.
And yes, definitely.
What do you want a how-to or a why it's important?
No, not how to, why it's important, but where do we go from here? What do we have going on, and where do we go from here? What's happening?
Well, we've got a short session this year, so we'll see what we can get accomplished. I mean, there's, last time I checked, there's probably better than 20 bills that have something to do with cannabis out there. But, you know, the cutoff for them to move out of their initial committee is on Friday. So I don't think that we're going to get a lot accomplished in the state right now. Federally, what you really want to be worried about is, if we're just talking business, is banking and 280E tax reform.
What about industrial hemp?
Well, I mean,
I mean that's a big piece of this whole puzzle because
It is.
it was outlawed the same time that the other was.
It's
so
a very huge pillar.
it's yeah.
And it doesn't seem like there's any real reason for it to be, well, kind of criminalized or outlawed for production and so forth. So isn't there's a law right now, I think they're going through the state of Washington to allow us to grow there. And if anybody wants to talk about that, they should be contacting their state legislators to see what's going on there, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're going to have to do a little better than that. I mean, if you really want to be effective, I mean, you're really going to have to go down there and start meeting not just your elected official, but many elected officials, and taking the time to figure out that there's a committee structure in there, and so that you can usher something through a committee structure and ultimately get it to the floor and understand how things are caucused and whipped and everything on the floor. All that sausage that comes into legislation.
But the people that don't know about that, who can they get involved with?
Yeah, it seems very overwhelming.
No, but who can they get involved with?
Right,
Who do they get
exactly.
involved with? Because you're the person that knows more about this than anybody else. So at least the people that are out there listening, and there might be a few others out there, but we're talking about 94% of the population here in the state of Washington probably doesn't know this.
Yeah.
So how would somebody do it? Or is there a better organization to get involved with? Or what?
Well, locally, I mean, the Coalition for Cannabis Standards and Ethics, that's what we do. We've recently reformed into the Cannabis Alliance. So now there's 4 organizations that have merged into one, and that's what we do. We go out and don't try to do it alone. Get yourself in a group. Educate yourself about how it's done. Listen,
And the Cannabis Alliance has got, how do you get in touch with them?
I'm not even sure what our website. Just Google Cannabis Alliance Washington.
Okay, so
And,
that'll help you get involved if you're interested in getting involved.
Yeah, and not just state. We also do like local moratoria, city councils. Those all have a structure. You'll have to overturn moratoria. You have to be knowledgeable on how they're set up in order to overcome them. Then on the National Cannabis Industry Association is a great lobby tool. We have lobby days. Once a year, we go down there, we meet our elected officials, we lobby committees, and it's
Excellent.
really the best way to learn the system is to just get involved in the system.
Oh, that's good. Now that we know a way to get involved, that's important because without a way to get involved, how do you know where to go, right?
Right. How to navigate.
You have to know how to navigate what you're going to do and how you're going to get there and so forth. There's a lot of there's just so much to do. It's an industry that's growing, and it's an industry that has nuanced opportunities in many different directions, depending on what your passion is, from a medical standpoint, from a recreational standpoint, from an investment, from just a ancillary, because you don't have
And
to,
hemp.
and hemp from an industrial hemp solution. I mean, if you're in construction, you're in a contractor, whether that's plumbing, electrical, or whatever. Those are all businesses that rely not just everybody thinks about the legal people because they have to get permits and they talk to their lawyers and stuff, but all these other people who have these trades are a valuable asset in the industry.
And accomplices, by the way. So
Yeah.
the
Exactly.
plumbers out there that are fixing those toilets,
Yep.
hey, you're connected.
Luckily, policy-wise, you're probably pretty safe. Go ahead, fix the toilet.
Okay. Well, now the state's planning over 500 plus retail, recreational / medicinal spots. Is that going to be enough, or should there be more?
No, I mean, the Botech study that came out, it's way too low. But I mean, we'll see. With the way it goes, we kind of have to see how it goes, and we'll know it when we in there. But it's not going to be. They figure they're getting about 9% of total cannabis sales right now. I mean, obviously that's not enough stores. There are places with moratoriums and ordinances that are de facto.
They'll keep them out for a while.
Yeah, moratorium. So
There's so much supply and demand. I mean, I don't even know if we even know how much demand there is because
No,
it's
we
such a
don't.
stigmatized topic that people, the white collars, some are like, I don't want to come out of the closet, but I will go down the street and now legally purchase it.
Yeah,
Correct.
that we're mainstreaming more often. There's more industry,
Yeah.
by the way, and there's more industry. When I say industry,
That's
I'm
right.
talking about not just the hemp industry and so forth, but we're talking tourism. And all the different nuanced opportunities for business creation and economic growth and so forth that are ancillary to this industry are actually phenomenal. I mean, there are just so many different I can't even begin to
Like the Air bed and breakfast, people, renting out their
Yeah.
space because, hey, we're in the realm of, safe access.
right. Right, and again, involved in criminal conspiracy, and you'll hear that from your attorney, but you have to be able to put it into context. Like, if someone came to me, even as a direct touch, with a criminal conspiracy charge, I would immediately, tell them who my fellow conspirators are, and that, Bob Ferguson and Jay Inslee and, the governor.
right
and
up there, baby.
Right, yeah, exactly. The
And
Attorney
50
General, everyone is involved. By the way, I've been paying my federal taxes, and the IRS clearly knows what I do. They're all involved. So really, on those ancillaries, they are pretty safe. You shouldn't go into it not studying it, but you should know.
What the technicalities are.
Yeah, you should know what the
Right?
technicalities are.
Yeah.
Because there are ways, like, people think, oh, there's no raids anymore, which is, people get shut down in this business every day. The powers that be just got a lot better at doing it. And they don't come after you. They don't like you. You're doing something bad. You've got taxes or building code issues or zoning issues.
There's nuanced ways to do this.
There's nuanced ways to shut people down, so you should be aware and don't piss off your neighbors. I mean, policy can be as simple as that. Like, be a good neighbor. Make sure that you're going out of the way to not be a problem in your neighborhood. Make sure you're going out of your way to be a good business person. If you are in cannabis,
Right.
um,
Adding credibility to the industry.
if you're just out there being an ass, and you
Well,
piss
it doesn't matter
your
what
neighborhood
industry
off,
you're in. If
Yeah.
you're gonna cause a world of hurt. Let's topic on one other topic. By the way, I want to talk about, and that's now that we have recreational cannabis, and there's also medicinal cannabis and so forth accepted within the state of Washington and other states as well. There's been a growing concern with regards to the green DUI. And the green DUI is like, okay, what does that really mean, and how, given the fact that you can still if there's psychoactive effects or toxicity from THC toxicity and you're impaired and you're driving, and then how do they know, how do they meter? And there's some advances that have to happen in that area because honestly, we don't want to, although we support the industry and stuff like that, we don't want people out driving impaired, whether
Yeah.
they're drinking alcohol or recreationally enhancing themselves and so forth. We don't want that out there to put people at risk. So what's the thought process on making that manageable?
Well, I mean, science has come a long way. I mean, I'll be the first to say that, our DUID program, it does not test if you're impaired. I mean, that's almost ancillary to that. Like, it tests to see if you have
In your blood.
THC in your blood system. So
and how much and how long
yeah,
and what the strength is.
yeah, and so different people are going to have different amounts of THC if they've used cannabis in the last month.
Right,
So
but we need to get to that point where it's talking about impairment.
Right.
Because that's the point where that's the concern for people. I mean, I was just talking to recently a mother who's talking about an organization in development called Mothers Against Driving Stoned. And which is an important opportunity because, hey, as responsible entrepreneurs in an industry, we don't want to have the stigmatism of people getting in accidents, if you will, just like Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I mean, nobody wants to see people out there driving drunk or impaired. That's why they have that drink responsibly, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Same thing needs to be happening. Use responsibly so that you are doing the right thing. If you're going to do something, do the right thing.
Right, and the Coalition for Cannabis Standards and Ethics is exactly that. It's for standards and ethics. Like, our whole mission when we started this back in 2010 was to say, hey, look, we're not going to be another tobacco, right? We're not going to be another alcohol. Like, from the way that we are set up, we want to make sure that we're addressing these concerns, and they're legitimate concerns with cannabis, like child usage, impairment while operating,
Heavy
equipment,
machinery.
heavy machinery, right, and advertising, that sort of thing. Advertising to children.
Right.
So we have to be, in my opinion, as an industry, concerned about these things, even though it doesn't matter to the bottom line. We need to actually figure, the testing right now sucks. We got to get better testing. But we also have to be concerned about, even in education, and we've been working a lot with the University of Washington to come up with an educational program that we can have within our stores to say, hey, look, it's not good to leave cookies around if you got toddlers, right?
Clearly, that's a no-brainer. But
it's-
what do you think about the DARE program, and do you think it should be reformed?
Well, I mean, DARE doesn't work. That's clear. I mean, you can show
But they're
that.
teaching, I'm a member, not a member, I'm a product of the DARE program.
Oh, we
so,
all are. We're-
coming, K through 12, public school, never heard about Henry Ford's plastic car.
No, it's drug hysteria, and it's still drug hysteria.
Exactly.
Oh,
And-
yeah. I mean, just say no.
Yeah. Well, and
Nancy there.
well, and the
Now
thing
it's
about it
just
is,
say maybe, right?
well, okay, but and that's totally fair. That totally was hysteria, and that's the way you and I remember it. But I think that we should be engaged in saying, listen, there's reasonable education that should be taken here, like
Absolutely.
with cannabis, but with alcohol too, with cigarettes,
Right.
Exactly.
with a lot of things, that.
Because the DARE program, I still see them at the Boeing Museum of Flight when they bring out all the military vehicles and the rescue units and such. The DARE unit is there, and it's very like, wow, it's what's that word? It's conflicting,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and it doesn't work. I mean, back to the thing. Okay,
They're educating, and I
DARE
guess
is not just not effective at kids. Your children are more likely to take drugs if they go through the DARE program. So let's
Oh
think
my
about
God.
that.
You're getting to the point where it's like when you say no, the kids do something that they say they're not supposed
Yeah.
to. It's really
Right.
it's really that simple. By
It's
the way.
really that simple. They did some message testing, and the test that actually was the messaging that was actually most effective with children is marijuana. It's what your parents do, right? It makes it not exciting, right?
Right.
So
no one wants to see their parents kiss.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's an abstinence question right there. Hey, well, anyway, on that note, thanks a lot, John, for joining us. We do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to help us out, to understand what's been going on in the business of cannabis and from an entrepreneur perspective, and how you've helped grow the industry and turn us in from a nascent industry to out of the black market into the gray market and wholly into the legalized market. And your role has been very phenomenal along the way. We do appreciate all the time that you spent doing that. Not only that, but the time that you spent coming to us and talking to us. And if we want to get in touch with you, what do we do? Look at the Cannabis Alliance in Washington and say, reach out there?
Oh, well, drop me an email. It's johnjohn.b as in boy, .davis, DAVIS, @comcast.net.
Hey, Comcast got another one. Oh,
Hey, and thank you so much for having me.
Okay.
It's been a great time.
I'm Daryl Bowman, your business and IT professional in cannabis.
And I'm Amy Ansel, your cannabis partner strategist.
We'll see you next week on the 411 on
On
420.
420.